Hey everybody, this is Andrew here, coming to you from Montreal, where I am playing the World Championship of Online Poker. I've never done a live recording before, so I thought some people might have some interest in this. This is the second Saturday of WCOOP, so Saturday, September 20th. There was a 1K 6-max tournament that I was pretty excited about, that unfortunately I've already busted, as well as the second chance. I think that was a $500 6-max. I've busted both of those, which is unfortunate because I've had, it's been a very good series for me in general. I haven't had any really deep runs in anything, but I've played, I want to say, 27 tournaments so far and cashed 11 of them. So I've got quite a good in the money rate, and that's WCOOP tournaments. I've played some other non-WCOOP stuff that I haven't done as well in, but and in particular I've done very well in Hold'em events and in shorthanded Hold'em events. A lot of the tournaments that I've cashed have been like 4-max or 6-max tournaments. So the ones that I'm in at the moment, up here on the left, is the $500 progressive super knockout, and I'm doing pretty well in that. You can see chip leader at my table, and I've already collected one bounty. So the way these super knockouts work, it's $500 to enter. $250 goes into the regular prize pool, and then another $250 goes to the bounty. And every time you eliminate a player, half of that player's bounty you just collect as a prize, and the other half gets added to your bounty. So my bounty is now at $375 because I eliminated one player. I got $125 in my stars account, and $125 gets added to my bounty. So you can see everyone's bounties here. And then this is the second chance of that down here. That's a $300. This is the big 162 that is just starting up, and I'm going to make a slightly tight fold here just because my position isn't that great. You know, this is a hand I would call in later position. And up here on the upper right is the Saturday Super Knockout, which I'm also doing pretty well in. I've knocked out 2 players already, so I'm actually even on bounties. My buy-in is paid already. See, there's 552 people remaining, 162 are going to be paid, and I have about 150% of the average stack, so that's nice. Of late, I've just been min-raising all the time. I've actually been doing this in cash games as well. It's min-raising at like pretty much any stage of the tournament if I'm not shoving. The main reason for that is that I think if this is how I'm playing my whole range, my range can be bigger the smaller my open raise size is. And so my goal is sort of to be able to play more hands as a result of doing this. I've been pretty happy with how it's been working out so far, so you all can see what you think. One case where you might consider using somewhat larger sizing is in a knockout tournament when somebody has you covered, which is the case here. I think this is a pretty reasonably sized 3-bet anyway, but I am erring a little bit on the large side of a range that I would generally use for 3-bets. There are a few reasons I've never made a live video before. One is that I find it a little difficult to talk and play. Some people might appreciate this, but I'm probably going to be a little less, or I'm definitely going to be less verbose than I am in some of my other videos. So up here, I'm going to be looking to get it in. In fact, I think I'm just going to jam. He has some incentive to call me here a little lighter than usual because it is a knockout. So, you know, if he decides he wants to put me on a draw and call me with and I think he's going to have a lot of trouble folding a queen there. I don't know how much worse than that he's going to have. I'm actually going to fold here if Rodrigo bets big again on the turn. Yeah, I mean, I don't... Oh, he's Brazilian. That makes me not want to fold so much. I guess he probably wouldn't raise 5-4 on the flop. I suppose there's a pretty good chance he has a club draw. It's unfortunate that I'm blocking the best club draw. This is... Honestly, I'm doing this because he's Brazilian. We'll see. Maybe he just has a set. Yep. Okay, he got paid off because of his location. I did have a pretty bad feeling about that. It's unfortunate. I don't think I want to jam 6 big blinds under the gun with 7-2 offsuit. I think that would be a very defensive. I mean, as you saw, I very nearly folded, and quite probably I should have. It's a little tricky when you're raising an early position and then and you're getting raised on a flop like that. But I do have all the stats in my range. I'm raising any pocket pair. Like I would have played any pocket pair that same way. So it's probably not enough if the only hands in my range I'm defending with are sets. But like once I bet call that flop, aces is actually somewhat close to the bottom of my range. Or I mean, I have a lot of overpairs in my range, but I don't think that makes that much of a difference. Yeah, every once in a while, especially in like the big 162, you will get someone who's just overvaluing an overpair. So there's a little reason to jam with like eights and not, or say aces and not eights, and also the aces are blocking, the eights are blocking some of the draws that I hope he has. You definitely are going to be calling shoves a good deal lighter in a super knockout because there's you get $150 for busting somebody, but with the under the gun raiser still to I mean, A, this guy's jamming versus an under the gun raiser, and B, the under the gun raiser is still left to act. So I don't think I can really justify calling with threes. Oh, that was convenient. I got table change, so I didn't have to pay the blinds. That should that will be helpful. I was starting to say reasons why I haven't made a live video before. A, I have some difficulty talking and playing at the same time, or I just feel like I can't say as many things about the hands, which some people may appreciate. There's always the chance that nothing of great interest will happen, and then I've sort of wasted my time. I can do one of two things, I guess. I can either publish the video anyway and just sort of waste your time by putting out a video that's not really very good, or I've wasted my time and effort recording something that didn't turn out to be very interesting content. I think because this is WCOOP and it's a somewhat unique format, I think it probably will end up being interesting, and I've got enough chips in a few of these tournaments. I hope I won't bust everything. It does seem like I'm pretty close to busting the 162. I don't really want to fire up another tournament, so what I'm probably going to do is open up a Zoom table. That's what I often do to fill spare screen space. Now this is pretty convenient that what is this? That the big blind here is sitting out. So, I mean, with 6 big blinds in the cutoff, it's pretty much an any 2 spot anyway, but definitely with that guy sitting out, it's going to be. I mean, Flo's is probably going to call me here pretty wide because he's a smart player and he can see the situation for what he is. But so other than running aces into a set, which was pretty unlucky, I've been lucky in the sense that A, I got moved around, so I didn't have to pay those blinds, and B, to have the big blind sitting out there was very fortunate. And now to pick up ace-8 offsuit is, it's not a monster, but given that I have 7.5 big blinds, it's towards the top of the range of hands that I would jam here, and I definitely can get called by worse by either player in the blind, so we'll see. The final reason that I have not made live videos in the past is that I like to eat while I'm playing. I usually have some snacks around, so I don't think there's really anything I can do here. I'll try to remember to mute the mic before I do that. I don't think I want to jam Queen 5 for 9 blinds, especially not after I jammed so many times before. I'll do my best to mute the mic before I do that, but apologies in advance if you do end up hearing some crunching noises, or if there's any kind of noise from outside. The desk where I'm playing is very close to a window that overlooks not really a busy street, but there's a lot of activity. Somebody was out there with some sort of power tool earlier, which is part of why I'm just now starting this recording. This is a pretty good spot. I mean, you don't need much of a hand to call here. It's not costing me very many chips, and I've got the bounty overlay on top of it. The biggest risk here really is that someone else is going to recognize how light I can call here and then re-raise to sort of isolate him and knock me out of the pot. That's kind of the thing I'm most concerned about. So like Dex could probably jam a lot of hands there justifiably. Okay, speaking of good fortune. Nope. Spoke too soon of good fortune. Oh, shit. I should have jammed that. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, that's definitely a jam with 6 bigs. See, this is why I don't try to talk and play. Okay, snack time. 1 second. I guess I'll explain my HUD here, which you've got VPIP, pre-flop raise, 3-bet percent. This is positional awareness, so this gives you an idea of how much this player's range changes by position. So Hit the Hole, who's a very good player, has a positional awareness of 8, meaning that he plays a lot more hands in late position than he does in early position, which is of course how you should play. I think that rather than jamming a really bad hand under the gun for 6 big blinds, I'll be better off just going with whatever I happen to get dealt in the big blind next hand. Just playing a random hand is going to be better than playing 6-5 offsuit if I have no fold equity anyway, which I think is probably the case with 6 big blinds. Wish I'd remembered to jam that ace-3. What happened last hand? I wonder if I would have gotten away with it. No, one of those guys would have called me and I would have lost. So actually worked out nicely that I wasn't paying attention there. Interesting here. I don't think this is quite good enough, but again, you can call pretty wide because I'm not going to risk. Well, I guess there's a decent amount of risk. I mean, the difference between like a progressive super knockout versus a regular knockout tournament is that the deeper you get in the regular knockout tournament, or a regular super knockout even, the less significant the bounty becomes. So you only get 3,000 chips to start this tournament, if I recall correctly, and so I mean, compared to the number of chips that are going to be at risk if I call a shove of like 6,000 big blinds or something, the bounty is it's certainly significant, but it's not like just going to be calling with anything. Whereas in the progressive knockouts, the bounties are constantly getting larger. So there'll be a reason. Did I get a walk in the big blind? Oh no, I got moved tables again. So that's another reason, I suppose, to to fold a bad hand under the gun is maybe you're going to get table changed. I think I'm probably going to have to go with this. I don't love doing this against an under the gun raiser. But yeah, I think I'm just going to have to go with this. I mean, the alternative is to just have to jam a hand from late position and only have, okay, so I'm pretty lucky to have a coin flip here. And that's going to be that. Yeah, I mean, the alternative would just be to like, hope to get an open shove spot from late position, but even then, like the big blind, Mans is probably not folding anything in the big blind anyway, so it's kind of like I can take 5s up against or under the gun range knowing that it's going to be a heads up pot, or I can like hope to get it folded to me in late position and hope to have a reasonable jamming hand. I think maybe both are defensible options. I happen to know that Mans opens a little wider in early position than some people. Definitely not folding this. I'm debating whether I want to squeeze with it. Yuko Igawa has a pretty high positional awareness of 7, which is an argument for just calling. And that will bring us back to my explaining the HUD. So we've got continuation bet here. The next number is double barrel, fold to continuation bet, fold to second barrel, bet versus a missed continuation bet. So if I check the flop, how often does the person bet? And then same thing on the turn. If I bet the flop and then check the turn, how often does the person bet? I don't think I really want to stab with it here. I don't see people folding better hands. This is a flop that I do want to bet. Opening 10-7 suited from the cutoff is like, there's certainly times when I'll do it and times when I won't. When I have the big blind covered in a knockout tournament is definitely an argument for opening it. It's unfortunate that both of the players in between us have me covered. I mean, that's an argument for not playing it. I think that Yuko Igawa is going to have like a jack or ace king pretty often here, and I think it's going to be hard to get him off of, even off of ace king, so I'll just fold. But like, because I have both him and this is, I thought it was Vanessa Russo. I don't know why her location is Canada though, but I'm pretty sure that's who that is. Yeah, because I have both of them covered, I'm going to be a little more likely than usual to play my hand. I mean, I think ace-queen is a pretty good hand to have on the button there anyway, even against early position action, but you have to be a little bit careful about domination. But I mean, definitely with having both of them covered, that gives me some extra incentive to play the hand and have some shot at picking up their bounties. So yeah, you can see this is the same Manza player who just busted me over on this table, and he or she has a 27% pre-flop raise, so her under the gun range is going to be a fair number of hands that I'm racing against. A little questionable whether to play this in early position, but Xenomorph is on the short side, so I think there's some additional merit in raising. It's going to be a little harder for him to defend his big blind, and if he does call, then his bounty will be in play, which is nice. Instead, I get 3-bet by this guy, who, from what I've seen of him so far, has been a little clownish. Okay, that makes my decision pretty easy. Continuing on with the HUD, this here is attempt to steal, so how often the player is raising from the cutoff or the button. This is attempt to steal specifically from late position, so this doesn't include the small blind. How often the player folds to re-steals, how often they fold to a steal, and how often they re-steal. Although honestly, these numbers are not, I really don't use these. I have them on there because I feel like I should, but no, like I said, this guy being clownish. I mean, especially in a knockout, like I can't imagine what he could have had there. I mean, he probably made an incorrect fold, but even so, like he must have 3-bet me with a pretty bad hand. Suited aces are good when you're deep, especially, and this is a good size one, and I cover the whole table, so I definitely want to be playing this hand. This is the kind of hand that you can win a bounty with. And here comes Clown Shoe again. I think that there's some temptation to 4-bet him, but I think A, he may not fold, and B, given that he just folded to a 4-bet the previous hand, I think that makes it less likely that he's going to 4-bet. I'm definitely not folding. He's given me pretty good pot odds, and like I said, I think he's just been folded a little much. So this could end up being a dicey situation. He certainly has most, if not all, better aces in his range. So I'm just going to start by calling the flop, and we'll see what happens next. I would 4-bet ace-king here and be ready to get it in, but not ace-queen. So I'm not necessarily at the top of my range. Because I have decks covered, you guys probably know that I call a lot out of my big blind anyway, and because I have decks covered, it's more incentive to play even a pretty junky hand like 8-3 suited. I'm going to call one more time here, and I'm probably going to end up folding the river. Yeah, especially a club river, I think, is very foldable. So this is interesting now that Dex has checked back here. I'm actually going to pot this. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance he wasn't planning on folding when he checked back, but the pot bet, there's a chance that'll change his mind, and so maybe he did have a king. I don't think I can justify calling this, even with the added equity. If he does have a king, I'm going to be in pretty bad shape. I'll win a little something extra for busting him, but probably not enough to need about 25%, and I probably have like 14%. I feel like the bounty might actually turn this into a call. I guess there's a chance he has a better club draw than I do. That would be a pretty big disaster. Although then I could bust him on an 8 or a 3. I guess there's a chance he's already full too. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be even thinking about that if it weren't a knockout tournament. I've tried a few times to think about like how exactly you can quantify the value of picking up somebody's bounty, and I have not really figured out how to do that yet. You know, on the one hand, it might seem like, well, if you enter the tournament, you pay $300 and you get 3,000 chips plus the bounty, then maybe the bounty can be considered worth 3,000 chips. On the other hand, the ability to win bounties is also contained within your 3,000 chips. Like, you know, if you lose those 3,000 chips, you can't win bounties anymore. So I think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's as linear as that. Speaking of linear, I've been trying to have more merged c-betting ranges. So this is a hand you might consider like checking on a queen high flop when you have an underpair, but I think, you know, enough second best hands are going to call me, like clubs and lower pocket pairs very well may call, that I think I can justify betting anyway. He checked back so quickly. I think if he had a club draw, he would probably at least consider betting it. Same thing if he had a queen. So I think there's a good chance that I have the best hand. I think that he probably has a lower pocket pair than mine. So I'm going to value bet the river and give him a chance to call me with worse. Nope, he had the clubs. I'm pretty surprised he didn't even consider betting the turn. Yeah, the bottom line is I don't really know how to write an equation to like do an equity calculation on whether or not that's a call versus dex. To be honest, I didn't expect that he would shove that often. Then that's part of why I thought he was probably on the stronger side. Like, I definitely would pot it there if I had a king, because I'm trying to get his bounty into play. Like, if I have a legitimately strong hand, like I've flopped trips, I want to try to get him all in by the river, like even more so than I ordinarily would in tournaments. Like, I definitely would make a big bet there with all of my strongest hands. So my objective was to try to turn a lot of hands that he might have been kind of checking back for pot control, to try to turn those into bluff catchers. Like, I think if he did jam there with something like queens, I think that would be, I don't know about suicidal, but I mean, he's going to be drawing very slim a decent amount of the time when I pot it. I mean, I guess there's enough draws on the board that I'll have those pretty frequently, but yeah, I don't know that I would love a jam with queens there in his shoes. So I think he was probably pretty strong to shove that. He didn't think very long before doing it either. As I mentioned, I think I'm going to open up a single Zoom table to replace that tournament that I busted. And I would encourage a lot of you to do this as well. If there's not a tournament that you're real eager to play, or if you're like winding down a session and you don't have as many tables open as you usually do. Consider using, I guess sit and goes can work for this too if you really just anti playing cash of any sort. But I would encourage you to consider opening up some Zoom tables. I think it's very good practice for playing deeper stacked, for playing shorthanded. I just find it a lot of fun. I think I initially got into playing cash just out of a desire to improve my tournament game, and I ended up liking it a good deal. And you don't have to play very large stakes. Like I'm just playing a 1-2 game, but you get in so many hands per hour that you can make some decent money at it. So you like don't be afraid to start at pretty small stakes if you're not real familiar with cash game play. I know I said I generally have a depolarized c-betting range, but I think because I have some backdoor draws here as well, there's a little bit more of a case for using this as a check call. This player has a low 3-bet percent. I use a different HUD for cash games. I'm probably not going to be talking as much about the cash game table. This player has a lower 3-bet percent, so he's not going to have a strong ace that often. Like if he does start barreling, I can be suspicious. Or other way around, I guess. If he starts barreling, I can suspect that he probably has it. Not a great river. I think I can check and occasionally win at showdown. I'm going to be beat here really often, but I think it's going to be hard to get him to fold. Like if I bet here, it would really be for the purpose of getting him to fold a bet or two pair. I think he will check back with some hands that I beat, which will be convenient. AW has a pretty low preflop raise. I'm just going to flat this, see what happens. I think I can fold this. I'm actually pretty open to checking some straights on the river, especially the lower ones. Suddenly I have a lot going on. So AW here, checked and called. I'm pretty happy to get check raised here by 10 pocket. I don't think I'm looking to 3-bet and get it in. There's not very many hands that I would 3-bet this flop with, and there's a lot of hands that I would call, so I want to keep it in that part of my range. AW check calls the flop, and now he's betting an ace on the turn. I mean, the check calling the flop would be consistent in having 10s. I don't think he's betting 10s on the turn, so I don't think I'm really beating much here. I'm gonna let him have this one actually. I'll fire a second barrel against Made by God. A little smaller than that, but not a lot. So he check calls the flop and check raises the turn. It's the min check raise on the turn. I do think there's some chance that he's doing this kind of for protection with a hand that's behind mine. Like if he just has a 9 and thinks I'm barreling a draw. So I'm going to call here and see what he does on the river. Now this I'm not wild about. I do think it's plausible too that he had spades. Just like, if he did have a draw of some sort, a lot of stuff got there. He should be worried about my having a draw. Yeah, I don't think I can justify calling this. I mean, really, when I call the turn check raise, it's mostly just because I'm getting good pot odds and I'm hoping that he gives up on the river. Like that he's making frankly, a kind of bad check raise with a single pair. Okay, and 10 pocket paid me off. I think that's a pretty bad hand to pay me off with. So he check raises with the nut flush draw and top pair, which actually already I'm not a big fan of. He barrels 2 pair, which I guess is okay. I mean, the problem is like he's kind of over-representing his hand by check raising the flop and betting the turn. And then when I jam the river, like, does he think I'm calling him with with a flush draw that's not to the nuts, like that I'm just calling him with like the king or queen of diamonds, or like what would I be turning into a bluff there on the river? I think like having the ace of diamonds in this hand is actually pretty bad, because that's a hand that I might consider, even though it's top pair, it's a hand that I might consider turning into a bluff. And that's part of why I didn't 3-bet earlier. I mean, I guess he would have been willing to get it in there anyway, but... this is interesting. He actually has a continuation bet of 0. That's over a pretty small sample. I think this is a card that he's going to check back really often, so if I had been slow playing a 6, this is how I would have played it. I don't think I can jam for value because like 7-8 got there, and I've kind of already represented a strong hand, so I think I'm going to check and call him. Oops, I timed out down here. I would have c-bet that flop. It's interesting that he's just pawning it. I think I'm going to call 1 and give up if he keeps betting. Yeah, this is, I think, a pretty clear call. Nope, he had the 6. Wonderful. I kind of doubt that he potted a 10. I think I'm going to turn this into a bluff. There's some chance if he calls that I chop it anyway. Okay, so things have definitely taken a turn for the worse here in the super knockout. Sorry for that noise outside. Actually, that guy's pretty tight. Yeah, so I mean, the reason I took that line that I did, I'm not really going to check raise that flop probably ever against him. I don't really check raise that many flops because it's a very difficult to balance like a check calling and a check raising range. So I've started just not really check raising flops. So if I actually had trips, I would bet that turn because I think that he's gonna check behind a lot, and so I'm also gonna do it with some of my floats. And as you saw, it helped me to get a free card on the river as well. Although in this case, that free card was bad for me. But I think he can have some draws that missed there as well, and I was getting pretty good odds to pick him off. It's not like I thought I was beating anything that he was value betting, but I think there's enough of a chance that he's bluffing there. I tend to not beat myself up over stuff like that because my philosophy is sort of like I try to play in a way that the only way to beat me, I mean not the only way to beat me, but my philosophy is I want to make my opponents show me a hand. Like yeah, I want people to feel like they have to have a strong hand in order to beat me. So when they actually have strong hands, I don't mind them getting paid off, whether it's because I got coolered and I had a pretty good hand of my own. Like I'm a little reluctant to believe possible bluffs, or whether it's because I bluffed in a situation where I was trying to represent a monster, and it turned out that he had one. But one way or the other, I try to play in a way so that my opponent kind of like needs to have monsters to beat me. And so if they actually have them, then I just consider that like a form of running mad. Like if my opponents are picking up hands, in some ways I'll get coolered. This is interesting. This guy jams pretty wide. There's definitely something to be said for trying to pick up his ante. Run this table is very positionally aware. The problem is I have to put like 12,000 chips at risk in order to do this. And he's jamming into an under the gun razor. I do have run this table covered also. I'm going to go for it. This isn't something I would do, except that it's a knockout tournament. Like ordinarily, I wouldn't really want to put 12,000 in the pot with this kind of action up front, and with so many people still to act behind me who could wake up with hands. But okay, so this is a great situation for me. All right, that don't want to be too results oriented, but that's that was about the best I could hope for there. But like, there's so much equity wrapped up in situations like that that's why I'm willing to take that sort of risk in this tournament. How are we doing now? 375, 172 to go. Not too close to the bubble yet, but definitely want to keep an eye on how close you are to the bubble. This is interesting. The situation that I'm now in the $500 is kind of an interesting one. Just as you've seen me calling lighter or considering calling lighter when I have somebody covered, you can and should shove wider for value, but not as much as a bluff, or you shouldn't count on as much fold equity when you're the shorter stack at a super knockout table. So you're going to see me making more, some bigger shoves than, like, I don't usually open shove like 20 or 22 big blinds, but I will do it sometimes in a super knockout because people have so much more incentive to call me, and when I do it, it's going to be with hands where I think I'm going to be ahead if called. But I'll just like open jam ace queen for like 22 or 23 big blinds, and people can correctly call me with like pocket fives or ace jack there. I guess I'm going to fold this to this dude who 4-bet me. This guy does not have a super high 3-bet, and he's 3-betting my under the gun raise, so I'm not going to try to 4-bet and get it in with queens. And I'll probably just end up folding this flop if he bets it, because I would expect him to have a lot of ace-x in his 3-betting range. When he checks, that gives me some hope that he has like jacks or tens. He could have kings or a weak ace that he's checking as well. Yeah, I think I'm still going to fold this. And I also have a lot of ace-x in my range for calling his 3-bet. So interesting here. I've got Sam Grafton, which I don't know. Hopefully some of you listen to the Thinking Poker podcast that I co-host. And Sam Grafton is a regular, or not a regular, but Sam Grafton was a guest on that show. I think it was I think it was one of my favorite episodes. It's probably not for everyone, but Sam's definitely a cool guy. Ace 5 suited's a pretty good squeezing hand on the button. This is an example of a hand that I would have jammed, but I'm not going to now. Into an under the gun raiser. Oh, and he ended up jamming King Jack and winning. I don't think that's a very good jam. I mean, granted his position was better than mine, but still. So this is the sort of thing I think that you don't want to do. You can't count on as much fold equity, so it's more important to be shoving hands that are going to be ahead of people's calling ranges, I think. Like Made by God is going to call really, really wide if it folds around to him, and other people before him will have some incentive to call wide as well. Probably should have considered 3-betting Manza. If I had him covered, I definitely would have, because he has a lot of incentive to open wide against Yuko's big blind, both because Yuko has to fold a lot and because he'll have a good chance of picking up Yuko's bounty if they play a pot. This is interesting. I think I'm just going to call and get it in on the turn if it's not a spade. It's a little light, but people don't always have a lot of respect for my button raises. Would have felt better about it if he had jammed the turn. King Jack 6 is definitely in his range. This is probably bad. Yeah. It's a tough flop to check raise me when I 3-bet pre-flop. But again, I like to make people show me monsters sometimes. I mean, probably to a fault, but that's sort of like if you actually have it, you may get paid off. But the flip side of that is that you're not going to get away with bluffing me, and you're going to have a hard time showing down medium strength hands against me. Don't tell me no one's going to call this. Oh. Good game, good game. Well, I guess I got what I asked for. I do have Mimra covered, and Mimra seems to play pretty crazy. 57-43 so far, huh? I guess I can justify getting into a pot with Mimra. For some reason my poker tracker doesn't put these where I want them. I don't know if I'm better off calling or check raising. I think I'm going to go ahead and raise and get it in here. Obviously I have a lot of equity no matter what, and then there's the bounty on top of it. The bounty is, there's a lot of chips in play here, so the bounty is not a huge factor. It's only $150 versus like I don't know what exactly 20,000 chips is worth, but probably like $750 or something. So the bounty is 20%. That's not really trivial, and that's just like the worst case scenario of if he actually decides he has a hand good enough to call me, which he did not. Don't really like folding my big blind, especially not when I have position. Pretty tough for me to raise him on this flop because like all of the nutted hands are in his range and not really in mine. I mean, every once in a while I'll flat something good, but it's pretty hard for me to represent a strong hand by raising the flop, so I'm more likely just to call with everything. I think if I raise here, it's just like, I'm never really going to bluff raise the turn, like maybe occasionally with clubs, but I'm not really going to have much of a raising range on the turn. And I mean, it's awfully hard to get called by anything less than a jack here. So I'm not going to make a big raise. I'm very rarely going to be bluffing, which is an argument for raising small. Wow, he did call me. Wow. Love that top pair. Can't justify calling that. So AW probably has a pocket pair. It's probably smaller than mine, but not guaranteed. The problem is that my range is pretty strong here. I am going to bet anyway, but I think it has to be a small bet. So he's going to have trouble calling me. And yeah, he flatted a bigger pair. Honestly, I think there's a pretty good case for checking that back, just because of my under the gun range. So much of it is like ace-x or big pocket pairs that and like it's not like he can't have because I'm under the gun range or like flatting queens or jacks is pretty plausible. Though I would argue he shouldn't do it as much in a knockout when he has me covered. But not everybody understands these things as well as I do. But I definitely have to bet small there. I can't expect a large bet to get paid off by like pocket eights or whatever. So this is another one where I think I can't really justify check raising because I don't have very many nutted hands in my range. What do I know about this character? This is that guy who had the... So we saw before he didn't bluff with a flush draw, and I block flush draw. 10-9 just got there though. I don't see him folding very much, but then again I have a lot of equity. So that's one of the merits of like check calling even your biggest draws on the flop is that it enables you to have a turn check raising range. I am finding that people are barreling a lot lately. That's been probably like the biggest eye-opening thing for me. This is a really clear raise with him having such a short stack. Like I'm downright excited to get in with him, and in fact I think Sam might be tempted to 3-bet me light for that reason. The thing that's like kind of jumped out at me the most during this WCOOP is like how barrel happy people are. It just strikes me as something I haven't seen as it just feels like something new in the metagame. So I'll put it that way. I don't think my hand is quite good enough to check call against Andre, and I think that Sam has a pretty decent hand to flat me there because there's a very good chance Andre is going to jam and reopen the betting when Sam flats. So I think he can flat some other hands as well, like just sort of hoping that Andre jams and then I feel squeezed out. But I don't think Sam's folding real often to a C bet, and although I do have some decent barreling opportunities. I think that combined with the fact that I can't really justify check calling against Andre. Now this being a button versus big blind situation, I am going to be looking to 4-bet and get it in here. Whoops. I've been just like half-pot c-betting everything, so I'll stick with that. If I didn't have a diamond in my hand, I would definitely jam this. Tempted to check it back and jam the river, but then again, I don't want the river to be another diamond and kill my action. So I think I'll just jam here and represent that I have the ace of diamonds, maybe. No, he wasn't having it. Set mining here with the threes, and I think set mining, although I don't have AW covered, I do have Take Me Slow covered, which is helpful. And then I think also like AW is going to pay me off later because he's going to be trying to collect my bounty. So like if I flop a set on a board that has some draws on it and I jam, I think he's going to be tempted to call me later, hoping that I'm on a draw, or maybe even with a draw of his own, trying to bust me and collect my bounty. And so, when I actually have a set, I can get called later than I usually would. I don't use color coding in the tournaments. In Zoom I do, and it has to do with how people respond to 3-bets. So a blue color, I actually don't have this guy covered, but that's a guy I cover most of the table. So obviously I'm raising ace-king anyway, but so blue indicates people who mostly call 3-bets. Red indicates people who 4-bet really often and don't fold that much, and yellow is people who fold a lot to 3-bets and call when they don't fold. Orange is people who fold a lot but 4-bet when they don't fold. And you want to have somewhat different 3-betting ranges against each of those types of players. The reason I don't bother doing that in tournaments is that it's so specific to people's stack sizes. It's not like, I just don't think I don't even use the fold to 3-bet stat in tournaments because I think it's just too stack size dependent to bother doing that. You're just not going to have reliable data. Got a break coming up, so I'm going to sit out of my Zoom game on my big blind. That's an important thing, to make sure you're consistently sitting out on your big blind and not before. Over time, over a couple thousand hands, you'll save yourself a few big blinds, which is nice. Interesting here that Ans is looking to 3-bet me. I think, especially given that he has the option of just calling, getting pretty good odds from the big blind. I don't think I want to 4-bet him and try to get it in for a ton. I don't want to raise here because I can't really represent a flush very well after checking back the flop, so I don't want to get 3-bet by someone who is pretty sure I can't have a flush. I think I am going to peel against Ans. Now S-Bliff. Yeah, with him potting on that river, he could very easily have the nuts. So again, make him show me a monster. Even though he 3-bet and bet the flop, I'm still not folding ace-king. He still didn't actually have to show me a monster, but I made him put a lot of money in the pot before I folded. And I do have so I'm just looking at other hands that are in my range. I have all the sets are in my range. Even 7-5 suited is probably in my range. 6-5 suited, 5-4, maybe not 5-4 suited. But a bunch of hands like that are all in my range. Are going to be hands that I'm not folding. Pocket 5s, pocket 7s. So there's a good amount that I'm not going to fold there. If he is actually barreling, I think it's okay to let go of ace-king. Okay, break coming up, so I will be back in a few.